Hello. Are you an entrepreneur? And are you feeling that there's a lot of doom and gloom around at the moment? There's so much talk about recession. There's so much talk about clients tightening their belts and reducing their spends. And it can become very easy to start to tell ourselves stories about how clients won't want to buy from us at the moment because we're too this, or they are too that, or too the other. And that can then get layered on top of stories that we already have about ourselves, about how awkward it is to talk about money, how difficult it is to sell our expertise, or how hard it is to really create rapport with clients in a digital space or even face to face. So when we layer those two stories over the top of each other, you find it awkward to start with, and then at the moment people don't want to buy, we can find that we start to fall into this sort of sense of grippiness around conversations and a kind of tightness and a need to make the sale happen. But actually, when we do that, our clients sense that tightness, they sense the grippiness, and it's the very opposite of creating rapport. So it might be true that over the coming months and possibly years, we will start to have less sales calls, less conversations, discovery calls, or coffee chats, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to be having less of those. So we need to make sure that when we do turn up to those, we are turning up in a way that we are going to create the best kind of rapport with that person, that we're going to have the best kind of quality conversation that we possibly can, and that we're being really authentic in that process. So today we are going to dive into what makes up a powerful presentation or a pitch and how you can show up and create incredible rapport with people. Because at the end of the day, your job is to move the relationship along. Now that might mean moving the relationship along into a sale. Brilliant, fantastic. It might just mean deepening the relationship, creating good rapport. And so you're keeping that door open for further conversations, which may turn into business in the future or a referral in the future. We always want to be deepening that relationship and moving it forward, turning it into sales when we can, but capitalizing on it when we don't. So before we dive into some of the things that we need to be thinking about over the coming weeks and months to really deepen that rapport, let's think about why it's really important to be powerful in those scenarios, in those conversations when we're talking about money, when we're making a sale. Because if we can't sell ourselves and our ideas, it's very difficult for our clients to buy into us. So we're going to dive into that right now. So one of the common things I would say when I talk to entrepreneurs and when I've worked with entrepreneurs in the past and currently is that when we get to the bit where we start to talk about money, we all kind of go, ooh, and we have a bit of a cringe. And one example of this that I feel really speaks to this whole idea is that when I've been working with women who've moved out of consultancy, so they've been in large consultancy firms charging probably tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds for projects without batting an eyelid, when they move into the entrepreneurial space and they start to talk about charging their clients maybe tens of thousands of pounds, it becomes really awkward and they feel really squeamish and they don't like it at all. And when we dig into this, we start to understand that it's not the money, it's the fact that they're asking for the money for themselves. They're not asking for the money on behalf of an organization. And that happens because they don't truly believe in their expertise. They know they're really good at their job. They know they're an excellent consultant of whatever business they happen to be in because they've been doing it for such a long time with really big clients on really big projects. But they don't believe it. They don't feel it in their heart. And so when they say to their potential customer, this is going to cost you this much money, there's a kind of squeamishness. It's like, is that okay? Kind of moment of panic. Now, I'm exaggerating here, but those clues will come out in a very subtle fashion, even if you're thinking it, just even remotely thinking that. So if we don't really own our expertise, having those money conversations is very, very difficult. And if we don't have those money conversations, we end up attracting the wrong kinds of clients. We discount in the ways that we don't really want to. And then we end up resenting doing the work because we're having to work too hard for the amount of money that we're charging. And everybody becomes dissatisfied. So getting comfortable with speaking about money, owning our expertise, and being able to say to the client, this is what it's worth, really comfortably, so physically comfortable, vocally comfortable, is really, really important. And that all starts with mindset. So until we can do that, money conversations are going to be really, really clunky and difficult. And to be honest, every conversation that we have is a sales conversation. Whether you're talking to a potential client or not, you are having a sales conversation. You are selling yourself. And everybody knows this, but I'm going to say it anyway. People buy you before they buy your product. So whether you're on a video on social media, whether you're on a podcast, whether you're in an interview panel, whether you're just chatting to somebody at a networking event, but they're not a potential client, whether you're talking to somebody on a train, a plane, or a bus, you are selling yourself. So being able to do that with absolute confidence and clarity, being able to hold your body and speak in a way that says, I'm an expert, I really know what I'm talking about, is selling your business. Because who knows who that person that you're talking to will be talking to the following week. And who knows what that other person might say. Oh gosh, I really could do with somebody who could help me with. And then they go, oh, I was talking to a woman last week who does that exactly. But until we can clearly articulate exactly what we do and do it in a way that demonstrates our expertise, you become quite difficult to refer. So every conversation that you have is a sales conversation. So we need to be doing that in the most confident way possible. Now, one of the things my clients find difficult to do often when we start working together is clearly articulate their offer. They know what they do and they know the impact it has, but they haven't quite found a way of saying it in terms of words and saying it with a body confidence and a vocal confidence that really demonstrates their impact and demonstrates their expertise. Because there's a big difference between telling and demonstrating, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more later. Another thing that clients often struggle with is genuinely talking about the impact that their work has on their clients, because they feel like they sound big-headed. You know, they feel like they're being just, overly, they're presenting themselves in a way that's not truthful or authentic. But if you're telling the truth about the impact that your work has with your clients, then why not do it with confidence? Why not do it with a voice that says, yeah, I really do make that kind of impact for my clients? So being able to own the impact and not feel like you're being big-headed is a really important part of creating a powerful presentation or a sales pitch. Because if you can clearly say, look, this is the impact that I have for my clients, and you could be doing that in terms of data, you could be doing that in terms of client testimonials. You could be doing it in terms of the anecdotal evidence that you might have from the impact that you have with clients and conversations you have with them after your service or product has finished. That is not being big-headed. That is presenting to your client, demonstrating to your client really the potential that you offer them to solve the problem that they have. So essentially, the sort of theme that's running through all the reasons why we need to get good at this is that we need to be able to look, sound, and feel like the expert we genuinely are. Because if we can't do that, it gets really hard to talk about money. It gets really hard to talk about our impact. It gets hard to deal with objections when they come up, and they will come up and they should come up. It's really important that objections come up. We don't like them necessarily, but they're really powerful points of conversation. So we need to be able to do that with expertise. We need to be able to do that looking competent and credible. Until we can do that, it makes those pitches a little uncomfortable. Because essentially for a client, when they're interacting with you in these sales conversations, discovery calls, coffee chats, whatever you want to call them, there is a sense that how you do anything is how you do everything. So being calm, confident, collected, concise, lovely pattern of C's there, during that conversation is very, very important, because that demonstrates your expertise to your client. Now, there was a situation that happened to me a few months ago, quite a few months ago now, 6 months ago. And I was looking to do some rebranding work for my organisation and to redo our website. And so I reached out to various different branding agencies and said, listen, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is the impact that we create. We're really looking for an organisation that we want to work with, that shares our values and can help us do this. So really super concise. I felt like I'd done quite a lot of work on it. I really knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. And I was very clear in that outreach to say, this is what I want. So I was very clearly signalling to people, I'm a potential buyer. Tell me how you can help me achieve this thing that I want to achieve. And I ended up having a conversation with one agency in particular. And it was the first agency that I'd spoken to. And the 11 minutes into the call, after the person had just been speaking about their agency and what they did, they told me the price. Within about 3 seconds of telling me the price, they were saying, well, but obviously we can discount that price if you wanted to do this or you don't want to do that. And it was possibly the worst sales call I think I've ever been part of, because after 11 minutes, they were talking about themselves. They hadn't asked me a single question about my business. And they were telling me the price and then almost instantly saying they could discount the price afterwards. It wasn't a comfortable conversation. The lady that I was talking to wasn't able to own the space. She wasn't comfortable to ask me questions. She didn't want to interact or create rapport in the conversation. So it became a download of information. And that's what we want to really, really avoid. If you are going to be having fewer but higher quality meetings with clients who are interested and who are sending you buying signals, then we want to make sure that you are creating that rapport, that they feel listened to, that they feel seen and they feel heard in that space. And you can only really do that if you're feeling super confident about yourself, super confident about your offering, and very present to yourself and to the person that you're talking to. Now, the flip side of what I've just spoken about was a client that I worked with earlier this year. And she's an entrepreneur. She'd had a really tough time in her business during COVID. They'd had to reorganize the whole thing. Funding had become a very, very difficult situation. And her confidence had taken a really, really big knock. And she wasn't sure she could go out there and ask for funding. She's asking for quite large sums of money. So we worked together on her product, we worked together on her business, we worked together on the way that she was able to articulate her offering to people. And within 8 weeks of finishing the program, she'd gone out and raised $1 million in funding, which is a huge amount of money, a massive turnaround. And it came about because she realized how much expertise she owned, how much value she had to offer as an individual, as the CEO of her company, but also the product and service that they offered the world. So that mindset piece, that turning on of her understanding of her expertise and her ability to communicate that with real credibility has made a huge difference to her business. Now, I know not all of us are going out there and asking for $500,000 in investment each time we go out and talk to people, but we are asking for sums of money that might feel stretchy to us. The number doesn't matter if it feels stretchy to you, and that could be £1,000, it could be £15,000, it could be 50. It doesn't really matter. If it feels stretchy, we are all going to react in the same way and kind of pull back and feel a little awkward, and our body, our voice, our breathing is going to indicate to the other person that we're not wholly confident about asking for that number. And therefore our listeners are kind of go, ooh, they're not totally sure. Should I be worried? And then the rapport starts to break down. So getting it wrong can help your client say no pretty much straight away. Your potential client say no straight away. Getting it right creates the ability to have a conversation and for that money to start to flow into your business in ways that you want it to, with clients that you really, really want to work with. So Those are the reasons why we need to get it right. Those are the reasons why it's going to impact your business positively if you get it right, and how it's not going to help your business if you get it wrong. So now we've done that, let's dive into the 3 things that I see entrepreneurs do when they're pitching, when they're selling themselves and their ideas, that really don't help create rapport with the client that they're talking to, potential client that they're talking to. And the first one of those is that we over-justify. Now, this is a really common thing that I see in female entrepreneurs and females within the corporate space as well. We over-justify. So we start with us in the conversation rather than them. So that would look like me coming on to this video and at the beginning of the video saying to you, okay, I have a master's degree in voice coaching and training. I have been doing this for decades now. I have had this impact with various different clients. I have had that impact with various different clients. I have helped entrepreneurs raise X million pounds worth of money in their pitches post working with me. Now, whilst all those things may well be true, they're not that interesting to you. And they're not that interesting to you because they're not about you. So whenever we're speaking to somebody who we feel could solve a problem for us, we really want to feel like they can see and hear us, that they get our problem. And if we don't feel like that, then it breaks down that rapport. So if I talk about me and what I can do, it's got nothing to do with you. It's like I've taken a step away from you, or I've put a barrier between you and I. I'm just talking about me, which you don't care about. And let's be honest, if you're a savvy purchaser, you will have gone out before our meeting and you will have read all about me on my website. You would have looked at my social media. You'll have looked at my client testimonials. You've done your due diligence. You don't need me to go and then reiterate it. But if I come into that conversation and I say, listen, we've hit a recession, or the potential of a recession. There's a lot of talk about doom and gloom, people tightening their belts. It might feel like you're going to find it very hard to make a sale in the next few months. But what I'm seeing is the clients that can really develop rapport with their potential clients, have the ability to really own their expertise. They are having excellent, really productive sales conversations with their potential clients, and their cash flow is not being affected. I'm starting with you. I'm starting with your problem. Now, if I can say these things might be happening in the future, and so a business like yours might need to be worried about this, or might need to be concerned about that, or needs to future-proof itself against this, then not only do you feel seen and heard, but you also feel like I care about what happens to you in the future. So by starting any kind of discovery call, any kind of coffee chat, any kind of sales pitch with, listen, this is you, this is where I see you are, this is what I understand to be your problem from the get-go, and this is what other people within your industry are suffering from, this is how they're dealing with it, or my experience of working with other companies has been this and they have done that, and I can see how that might be beneficial to you. Super helpful, because you are providing insight to them, you're helping them feel seen and heard, you're helping them feel like they're not alone, like they are not the only business out there that is feeling or suffering in the way that they currently are. We want to be also making sure that when we are talking about their problems, we're saying, we're really making it clear why they're a problem. So this is the problem X. So that means this is going to happen or that's going to happen. So we're always giving a kind of so what. So if that's the problem, right, we all know that this is a problem. So we're all going to be having potentially going to be having fewer conversations about sales, right? So that means it's going to be harder to fill your pipeline. That means we want to be qualifying those clients much more highly. So we're only having conversations with people who really, really are in need of our services. So that means, so we're always giving a so what, or we're explaining, when this happens, that will happen. There's a consequence. This happens, that will happen. And it can be a good consequence or it can be a negative consequence, depending on the conversation. But we're always giving a so what. So we're really making the sort of status quo very, very clear for our clients of where they are and where it's likely to go next. So they feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel like we're having a conversation about their future. Now, if we can start conversations like that, brilliant. Now, it might be that you're getting onto a call and you don't know any of this yet, because this is an initial call. You've been given some sort of top line info of where this potential client might be, but you're about to discover a lot more. So you now have a wonderful opportunity to go back to your sales call process and look at the questions that you're asking. Are they deep enough? Are they prodding the status quo? Are you starting with your client's problems and issues, or are you asking them what potential remedies they've used before that haven't worked, or maybe they have worked and why haven't they gone back and done the same thing again? Really be diving into the status quo. Make sure all your questions are focused on that to start with, and not focused on why you ought to be having the conversation with them. So I hope that makes sense. So we're starting with them and their problem to start with, because we want to lower their sense of risk. And if you make them feel seen and heard, you will lower their sense of risk, and you will increase their sense of, she really gets us. Yeah. You want them to be walking away from that conversation and go, wow, it was like she was in my head. That's where we want to be. And if you ask those deep searching questions about where they are and what's going on for them, and reflect back what you see and hear, you will be creating incredible rapport very, very effectively. And it's deep rapport. It's not just surface rapport. It's really deep rapport. So start with them. Don't start with you. You can always come back to you later. You can always explain why you're doing this, where your route to this particular service offering much later on. Okay, it doesn't need to be at the beginning. Now, the next thing that will really help you create strong rapport with the people that you're talking to is having a very, very clear structure. And I always like to start with the very, very simplest kind of structure: beginning, middle, end. So the beginning piece is a bit like I've just spoken about. It's if you're doing a more formal presentation, then you want to start with the status quo. What's going on? You know, do the macro. What's going on across the globe? And then maybe what's going across in this particular sector or this particular industry. Then what's happening for this client? And really kind of drill down into what is going on and your overview of what's going on and what you think might happen next. Because by having that really sort of lovely macro down to micro view of what's going on, the client, again, is going to feel seen and heard. They're going to really understand where they fit in that macro picture. And they may have a very clear knowledge of that. They may not. So just by doing that, you may be offering them some insight. Then the next bit is the middle. And this bit needs to be really super concise and super clear. So it's very easy in these instances to want to tell clients everything about what you do and all the ways you can solve their problems. And actually, that's not helpful. So by giving them 3 to 5 ways, solutions or problems that they have and solutions that you could offer, and it may be less, the fewer the better, then that's really, really effective. If you try to tell them about everything and about all the ways you can help them solve their problems, it isn't necessarily helpful. So going back to that macro down to the micro view, what do you see as the 3 major problems that you could help them solve? And is there one that they have a specific feeling is the most important? Sometimes they'll be right about that being the most important. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll be focused on a symptom and actually you can see there's a cause further back that you want to focus on. So really focus in on what is going to move the needle for the client and talk about those kinds of things. Now, if you can evidence that, brilliant. So when I worked with X client, we did this and this was the result. There was an issue around that, but we solved it by doing this, and therefore they were able to Y. So making it really super, super clear that you've done this before, that you've helped clients do it before, that you've worked at this level or this pace before, you've held this many projects, whatever it might be, that you can demonstrate it through the evidence that you use in this middle part. And then the ending. Now, the ending is really super, super important. We need to make sure that the client knows what to do next. So sometimes it's really obvious. Sometimes they're like, okay, right, how do we get this project started? Right, how can I work with you? Right, how do I? So they're driving the project forward. If it's not so clear, one of the really, really great questions that you can ask is, given that we've talked about this, given that you've got this issue, given that we can help you solve it by doing this, what's the best next action that we can take? And then let them come back to you. Oh, well, we need to go and talk to finance, or I need to get authorization from so-and-so, or can you come back in and we need you to talk to, the heads of group, or whatever it might be. So get them to tell you what the next best step is if you don't know what it is. And then make sure that you are following through on that, obviously. But having a structure that is focused on the beginning being their problem, the beginning being the macro to micro view, the middle bit being how we're going to solve your issue, and then the final bit being the sort of call to action, what needs to happen next, is very important. And just by keeping to that very, very simple structure, you will have and create a powerful pitch, a powerful presentation, and develop rapport with the client as you do it. So that is important. Clarity and being concise when you present, using that structure will really help you build that rapport. Now, the next bit is, I'm going to split into two sections really, but it's all about presence. It's all about how we hold our bodies, what we're thinking, how we use our breath, our voice, how we gesture to make sure that the client knows that we are available to them. And if we've been sucked into this doom and gloom, if we're worried about these sales conversations, if we're feeling kind of tight and grippy around this conversation being really effective, i.e. we get a sale, we get somebody to say yes and sign on the dotted line, then that will show up in our body language. It will show up in our voice. It will show up in the choice of words that we have. It will turn a conversation into something that's more like a push rather than a pull. So the conversation that I've been speaking about up until now, where we're talking about the client issues, where we're trying to use our structure to make sure that they feel seen and heard, that is about gently pulling the client towards the solution that you can provide. If we feel like we've got to make a sale, it will show up in our body language. It will show up in the language we use. It will show up in our tone of voice, and it will start to feel like a push, like we're pushing a client towards a solution that they're not 100% certain that they want or need. So we really, really want to avoid that at all costs. So being able to be present. So present is this ability to have about 50% of your attention on you and 50% of your attention on your potential client. So you're watching their facial expressions, you're listening deeply to how they answer in terms of what they're saying, as well as their tone of voice. Then you will be getting great information from them. If, however, more of your attention is on you, so it's inside your head going, oh, they didn't like that, they have an objection to this, or they're not going to buy, and we start to build that tension, that tightness, and that grippiness. And your clients or potential clients will pick it up, and they won't respond very, very positively to it. So we need to be able to release that mental and physical tension, to be present to that client and to enjoy the conversation. So like I said at the beginning, our role as an entrepreneur is always to be building that relationship, to be moving that conversation forward. And absolutely, yes, we do need to make sales as well. But sales, we want to make sales now. Our clients want an extended sales process. So by building a really robust relationship, it's much more likely that those sales are going to come. Maybe a bit further down the line than you want, but they will come because that relationship is there. If we're too grippy, we haven't released that mental and physical tension, and that isn't showing in our body, then it's less likely we're going to make the sale now, but also we've not built the relationship for the future. So learning to be present to the person that we're speaking to ourselves, to our thought processes, is absolutely essential because it really impacts on our credibility as a speaker. So the way that we speak. So very important that we learn how to do that. And the second part of being present is our ability to respond. to see where our clients are at, to see whether we need to speed up, slow down, repeat ourselves, give a different kind of analogy, answer a difficult question, make a joke, whatever it might be. Being able to respond makes your pitch much more like a conversation. It will feel less like a download for you, less like a download for them, and you're building the relationship because it's conversational rather than one-way sort of download of information. So being present allows you to respond, which is so important, rather than kind of going away, getting back on the tube or driving home and thinking, oh, I think I lost them when I got to such and such. I felt like I lost them and they started to disappear away from me. If you're present and that starts to happen, you're like, oh, okay, need to change something here. Something's gone awry. And it could be that they've just slightly misunderstood the thing that you were talking about previously. So just going, I'm just sensing in the room that we aren't quite on point here. Do I need to go back and clarify that last point? And the room will tell you what they need. So being able to respond, super, super important. And you can only really be present if your mind is clear. So if you're not thinking, oh, I need to make this sale, and if your intention is built around building the relationship, if your intention is, I want to get to know this person, I really want to understand what their problem is, then that will come across in the way that you speak, the way that you listen, the questions that you ask. So you will look and feel more like an expert to the other person because you're responsive to their problems. And obviously, the more responsive you are in that kind of conversation, it will kind of follow through and they will feel like, well, if they can be responsive right now, they can be responsive when we start this project or when we start this program. So being able to be present is very, very important. So today we have looked at how we sell ourselves and our ideas. I find it difficult to articulate today. Selling ourselves and our ideas. Now, it might feel really, really hard. And that's completely normal. Lots of entrepreneurs, and it doesn't matter whether you're at the beginning of the journey, halfway through it, or you've been doing it for ages and you still think, oh, I just hate that bit. I never feel comfortable pitching myself to clients in, one-to-one telephone conversations, Zoom calls, or, standing in front of a room full of people. It's normal. Most people feel like this because we don't fully own our expertise. We don't enjoy conversations about money because it feels a little bit awkward because we don't own our expertise. But if you're still listening to this video, I can guarantee you're a good person. You are a decent human being, okay? And, selling can feel really, really pushy, but you're not a pushy individual. And if we can change the way we think about how we're selling, it will make a massive difference to how we show up in those conversations. So one of the things that really changed it for me was the concept of an offer. So I can see you have this problem and I can articulate your problem for you. And I've got this offer because over here, we're doing this program, which is amazing and is really making so much difference to women's lives. And we would love for you to come and join us. We'd love for you to come and join the party over here because it's amazing. We are doing some really fabulous work, but it's an offer and you don't need to come if you don't want to, or if you don't feel it's right for you, but we would love to have you as part of our cohort. So it's an offer. And for me, making that mental change from selling something to offering somebody the opportunity to come in and solve their problem felt like a huge change. Now I get super excited about, the numbers of calls that I'm going to have this week. I've got 3 discovery calls this week. I'm really looking forward to every single one of them because it's like, okay, how can I help this woman? How can I help solve the problem that she's currently having around communicating effectively? So if you can change your mindset from I'm selling, which might feel a little bit icky, to I have this amazing offer, that can be really, really helpful. But what are the things that we talked about today? Them rather than us. So always start your sales conversation with a summary of their status quo. Where are they? What's happening for them? What might happen for them in the future? And what do they need to future-proof against? Then we need to make sure that we structure our conversation or our pitch, if we're doing an actual presentation, in a really clear, concise way. And it's compelling as well. So we want a nice beginning, which is all about them, the status quo. We need a really good middle, which says how we're going to solve their problem. And we need a very clear call to action at the end. What needs to happen next? After a lovely summary, of course. So nice, clear, concise structure is going to help your clients understand what you can do, demonstrate your expertise, and create that lovely rapport that we're really, really looking for. And then finally, we need to be present. So being able to be present means we have to be able to quiet down the noise of the inner critic and the, you're going to ask them for that much money, we're in a recession, nobody's going to pay that much money. We need to get rid of not all of that stuff, or at least turn the volume down so that we can be present to ourselves and to them, so that our body, breath, voice, and the words that we choose to say are congruent with our offer. They make sense with our offer and with us as a person. And also, so the second part of that is that we can respond to whatever's going on in the room. Speed up, slow down, make it more funny, be more serious, whatever it is we need to be in order that a message can land with that particular group of people is very, very important. But if we're too caught up in our head, worrying about the doom and gloom and having a tight grippiness about any kind of sales activity, then that's going to make it very hard to be responsive. So for the rest of this month, so we are October, and for pretty much all of November, in YouTube, in Facebook, and in Instagram, we are going to be focusing on the pitching and selling process for entrepreneurs, for all the things that we might find difficult, all the ways that we can fix those difficulties. And there's going to be lots of events and activities, lots of lives, all focused on this area. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are slightly worried about what's going to happen over the next few months, you know you don't enjoy those selling processes, you don't enjoy pitching or talking about yourself, and you don't feel like an expert in your business, even though you know you are, then come and join us. Come and join us in our Facebook group, and we're going to put the link in the comments below. Come and join us in our Facebook group. There's going to be so much going on over the next few months, so much to support you and your journey to becoming much more comfortable to creating powerful presentations and pitches as an entrepreneur and an expert in the field that you're in. Take care, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.